Hi, my name is John Capello. I am the VP of Strategy and Field CTO at Nasuni. I'm here to talk to you about Nasuni Labs. It's a very exciting new program for us at Nasuni, and I am going to give you a live demo from one of the projects of that as well. So what is Nasuni Labs? Essentially, it's our GitHub account. It's a GitHub account managed by us, which we use to host open source projects built using the Nasuni platform and how it can integrate with other third-party technologies. So when you think about the Nasuni platform, think about the ways in which you can interact with Nasuni outside of just the file interfaces. There's the management tier. There's the Nasuni Management Console API. It's a REST API, which comes included as part of the Nasuni Management Console. There's a data API on each of the appliances as well. And so using an HTTPS API, you can actually manage the same types of file interactions you would using CIFS or NFS. The edge appliance itself is something that can be, the deployment can be automated now, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the packages that we have for that. And the analytics connector, it's a service that we introduced a few years back, a service that runs inside of a client's environment. And the analytics connector really is a serverless stack that can be deployed either in Azure or in AWS. It's a stack which will take as inputs anything I want to extract from my volume. So I've got a very large volume of data, and I want some amount of that, some subset of that volume to be analyzed. And I want it to be in, let's call it native file format inside of an object store. So I could have a petabyte of data in a volume, but all I really care about are the JPEGs. All I want are JPEGs, and maybe I only want the JPEGs from a certain set of projects. Well, if you can define either a glob or a regex statement about where something exists within the file system, then you can extract things out of the analytics connector. And on top of that, you can even go one step further. You can say, I not only want just that part of the file system, I want that part of the file system from just key versions over time. So I can choose versions of the file system. I can choose a range of versions and say, just give me that from that file system. Really powerful because it will extract it out. When I extract it out, it will read through what we have as the proprietary format, and it will write a native copy of that into another object store of your choice. And the nice thing we have here is you can actually run the serverless code inside of AWS, extract from an AWS account, and extract from an AWS-based volume, and then put it into another AWS volume, or run the serverless code in AWS, extract it from an Azure-based volume, and send it to AWS. Same thing with Azure. You can run the serverless code there, extract it from any one of your locations of your volume in any of the clouds. And I talk about using third-party technologies, and this really came from the questions that we got from our customers. Very basic question that we got. In fact, whenever people talk about Nasuni or get to learn about Nasuni for the first time, one of the first questions is, how do I search? How is it that I can actually search through my volume? And at Nasuni, we really thought about this. How should we implement search into our system? We knew there were lots of great tools that we could use. But then we thought, well, wouldn't it be better if we just provide a way to integrate with the best-in-class search services out there? So rather than build it ourselves or make a bet on a particular integration, we wanted to create the tools to be able to do that. And that's what I'm going to be showing you today. It's also the first time that Nasuni has started to work with some of the more modern orchestration frameworks for our edge appliances. So Terraform scripts you'll see all throughout the GitHub repos. As well as using containers to be able to manage some of these serverless or other kinds of deployments. One of the things to keep in mind about all these repositories that you're going to see within Nasuni Labs is they're developed with one principle in mind, which is though they're built by Nasuni personnel, they don't use anything that is not available to our general customers. So it's really, really important that we design labs projects which our customers could design on their own. We want to showcase what you can do with the platform and do that by creating some of the projects that we know our customers have been asking us for. What we're also starting to see right now are customers coming back to us saying, well, I've got some ideas, or I've actually built some integrations. We have a customer that built a Slack bot, which will tell you which files have been under lock and whether or not you should release those files. That's fantastic. I'm hoping that we can actually get that as part of the repository soon. So this is a real shift for us, both in terms of the technology, but really as a company as well, in which we can open up the innovation that we know exists out there within our customer base and share it with other customers as well. We don't charge for these tools. So these are free. That's a MIT license under which they're all issued. You can feel free to download them, feel free to fork the repositories. We'll be working to decide internally if some repositories will actually bring on other pull requests back from the community. But as is today, this is something that you as a customer can download and use for your own purposes. And on top of that, what we've offered to our customers every week now is a workshop that will be open to any of the customers to be able to engage and ask questions about this, to be able to learn from other customers about how to develop this. It's our way of helping our customers along that journey to becoming more adept in the DevOps mindset or the DevOps tools that exist today. So specifically, what are the projects that that we have in labs today? They really kind of fall under two categories. The first is that search integration. The first is how do I get the data out of Nasuni and put it into another service so I can get value out of my data. And really, the ones I'm going to show today is the Kendra integration. If you have ever worked with Amazon Kendra, it's a fantastic kind of very easy to deploy, very easy to use search service, very powerful, but really limited to a specific set of Office docs and Office files. They're constantly improving it. There's lots of great things I know are coming out, or that we've heard are coming out on Kendra. They also offer an open search service, which is their version of Elasticsearch. Amazon OpenSearch is a little bit more of a configurable, more powerful platform. Again, based off of the Elasticsearch code base. And then we see a lot of our customers asking for things that have to do with data governance, and in particular, how can I find PII data? How can I find secure data or data that I should be worried about inside of my environment? Two fantastic services for that, Amazon Macie, Azure Purview. Those are the next set of services that we're going to be integrating with. So today we do the search services on Amazon. Coming out will be the Azure Cognitive Search Services as well. And then in the future, we're going to be doing PII. And then really what our customers ask us for or whatever we see them design around or develop around. And then the second suite of tools, which I won't actually demo today, but they're up there on the site that, feel free, if you're a Nasuni customer, if you have a Nasuni account, feel free to try those out. It's all around automation. It's around orchestration. So it's a set of PowerShell scripts that you can use to automate the deployment of an edge appliance. It means that what typically was a 10-minute process in which you would go through a GUI and grab data from your account at Nasuni now can all be automated and parallelized. So customers that would take, say, hours to be able to deploy a fleet of Nasuni appliances, now it can happen in minutes. Very powerful set of tools using the set of technologies which most of our customers are familiar with today, which is PowerShell. We're also developing a set of Python tools for the customers that are more in that kind of mindset at this point and have those sets of skills. But really, we start where our customers are today, and a lot of them really are basing off of tools like PowerShell.
Quick question there.
Please.
Is there maybe a third or fourth that you have in mind as you go from like PowerShell to Python to what's maybe next?
That's a good question. Well, if you look in some of the repositories, we actually are just using like typical Bash for some of it as well. And we're finding that I would say Bash fits really well within some of the Terraform modules. If you don't have a Terraform module, or if you don't have a specific Terraform provider, it's really easy to be able to write the Bash scripts for that. I guess it's sort of 6 1/2 a dozen of another if it's Python or Bash, but it seems to be in the at least what we've seen sort of in that the sort of Terraform types of templates that Bash is a little bit more common there. Outside of that, I can't say that we've seen too much of from a language perspective, if there's anything else that's kind of coming to mind. Those have been the main two. But certainly Terraform and Ansible have been the other technologies which we're really pushing towards. So ultimately, we want Nasuni to be to have a Terraform provider or Terraform module. But today, you'll be able to use these scripts in coordination with Terraform to be able to, essentially, put it as part of any kind of like Terraform template. And we know customers have done that to date, so we're also using this as an opportunity to be able to share what they've done with other customers as well. Oh, and the second piece was around the NMC API operations, and I will show you a couple of that when I get to the GitHub account. But those are basically recipes for how to get data either out of the NMC or use the NMC, the Nasuni Management Console, to be able to control parts of your environment. This has saved a ton of time in our customer base, a ton of time. It allows them to do things like analyzing quotas or doing chargebacks, like things that usually take a lot of manual effort, now can happen very, very quickly. Now I'll just talk through some of the packages that we have out there on that one.
Do you have any plans of being able to look in like a VMDK or something along those lines?
The one that we do have, which I'll talk about, which is a little bit we haven't really, it's not anything particularly private, but it's not something that we've started to release publicly on the GitHub account, is that we're working to come up with a way, a set of modules, probably built around Apache Tika, to open up AutoCAD and other design files. So we're looking to, I don't know if this totally gets to your question, but the one thing that's not sort of standard search right now is that if I have like DGN files, or if I have a lot of AutoCAD files, it's kind of difficult to really grab the content from that. So to that degree, we're doing something a little bit more kind of unique and very customer specific on search.
Okay. I mean, the specific question was if somebody's actually using this to store a VM, or either like a KVM instance or a VMware ESXi or VMware Workspace.
Oh, I see.
Are you going to? Do you actually have any plans of being able to examine those?
To crack that open or anything like that? Not yet. We haven't had customers ask for that, but that is pretty interesting. The what this allows us to do, though, with some of the, and I'll talk a little bit about the design of one of these packages or these repositories, is it does allow us to modularize pretty easily what it is that what we're opening up. So we can very easily like create serverless code that will look for a file type. In this case, it could be a VMDK, and then just have a way of treating that separately from the other things that might be looking at.
Okay.
So just to the extent that it's modular, it could be. It's easier than having to kind of start something from scratch. We thought very, very intentionally about, especially with the OpenSearch integration, designing it so that we could encourage other people to design to specific file types. So I guess I would probably think of the VMDKs as just I know it's more than just a file type, but it becomes a little bit easier to open that.
So basically, if somebody wanted to go off and do that coding to make it work, they have the connector.
Yeah, they have and they have the. I'll show you in a second the scheduler as well inside of it. So that's the when it comes to search. I'll kind of skip ahead to this for a second. This is really the new thing that you can download from Nasuni today, which you weren't able to do before, which is this thing called the Nasuni Analytics Connector Scheduler. And what all comes out with the scheduler, and I hope you all can see this here. Basically, this piece right up top here, Analytics Connector, that's what you get today from the traditional Nasuni Analytics Connector. If I go to my dashboard and I want to launch the connector, I get this stack right here. And it's serverless code. Again, this is in AWS, but there's also one in Azure as well. And you basically fill out a big template that says, tell me where I'm analyzing from and tell me where I want to put things to. So you need a source bucket and you need that destination bucket, and it'll spin up all of that.
Okay. And you said this connector is new. How long has Nasuni Labs been up and running?
About 2 months.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
so it's new as well. Excellent.
Okay. It's new. Yeah. Well, the Analytics Connector, actually, I should take that back. That's been out for about 2.5 years. So we've had customers that have been using that for about 2.5 years. But all the things you're going to see now around that is what's the new piece around it. And so this connector is something that you would execute one-offs on. So if I wanted to, as some of our customers have done, analyze, again, like all the JPEGs in my environment, with Amazon Rekognition. You could set up your template, it would run everything, it would export everything, and then you would tear down the template, and you'd have this bucket with all the native files, and then you could launch whatever you want to do from there. And that was our initial design. We built this very powerful tool to be able to move this data out of Nasuni and put it into this other system. A lot of our customers came to us and they said, well, if it's search, it should just, keep doing the export. And so we thought about that. We're like, yeah, we really need a scheduler component here. And they said, well, and if you're going to do that, then can you help us like with that last mile of how do you get from the bucket to the service? And what that really is a set of Lambda functions or triggered functions that can say, hey, this data just showed up here. What do I do with it now? Do I send it to recognition? Do I send it to a search service? So what we did is wrapped around the analytics connector a couple of things. One is this notion of a scheduler, which is a little VM that runs inside of an environment. The secrets manager, which I'll talk about in a second. And then this custom Lambda function for whatever, when I say custom to that specific integration. So we'll have a Lambda for Kendra. We have a Lambda for OpenSearch. We're gonna have the Azure function equivalent for cognitive search. And that knows what to do with a bucket that now has data that needs to be sent to the other service. So we've tried to eliminate all the friction that would be in place to having a consistent, reliable integration between Nasuni and a third-party service. We got the scheduling piece down, we have the Lambda piece down, and we have the visibility as well. There's actually a little UI on top of that scheduler too. So I am going to do that dangerous thing of providing you a live demo right now with all of this. So first off, Nasuni Labs, again, hope everyone gets a chance to check it out. You know, you really do, you need a Nasuni account to use it. So if you don't have one, you can also get one of those as well. A very, very extensive documentation here about what to do to be able to integrate and to be able to use this. But it's fairly simple. You know, for anyone who's familiar with GitHub, you know, you can clone it. It's a public repository. If you're not familiar with GitHub, what we usually tell folks is that you go here, you download it here, you open up the zip file, and as you'll see in these instructions, the quick start's pretty easy. You do these steps. You download it, you make sure it's executable, and then I will show you that, which is, we make it super simple. So I've got the NAC scheduler here. I've decided that there's going to be some folder that I want to access some volume, the service I want to integrate with, how frequently I want to do this, and then I've got this set of secrets, which we really, really like this new kind of design pattern of using secrets managers to manage all these different integrations or interactions that we would have with other services. So I'll get into that one in a second. But we start with something like this. I'll just kind of start from the beginning. I've got a projects folder here. This is, by the way, if you haven't seen this before, this is the Nasuni view into, this is the web access view of Nasuni. So I set up this folder and it creates a share. There are a bunch of volumes that are on my Cambridge office here. And I just happen to have a bunch of just documentation here. There's some ransomware documentation. There's some Nasuni documentation. Now, ultimately, what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to, you know, ask a question. You're like, how do I deploy a Nasuni edge appliance? Something I've asked before. And I want to be able to make it that simple. And I want to be able to see the results here. I want to be able to then click on something and get to that file. Well, that's the great thing about having a web appliance that's accessible, because now I've changed the indexing here so that it will always point back to that source. And what I get then is not just the result, but then be able to click on the result and be able to see that document, which it's here, but you'll see that show up here, which is the document that I can then download from there. We can also change it so that instead of going to a website, it can go to, you know, a local path as well, whack such and such. We've had a lot of customers ask for that as well. But the idea is to go from this of having all this data here to this, which is super simple way of searching your data. And the way that that happens is through this one-liner. So this one-liner here, I execute that. And within a few minutes, what's going to happen is I am then going to have this available to, this will be available to my Nasuni scheduler. So I'm going to go back and show you exactly what is getting launched here in a second. And just to avoid some of the configuration stuff being available there, I'm just going to make sure that we talk through this. So right now what's happening here is I downloaded that repository. I started here on my customer workstation. I'll talk about this in a second, but I already set up a secrets manager, and I'll walk through what that looks like. But right now, it should be setting up a schedule. It should be setting up that VM. And it's going to set up that VM with all the information I have in my secrets manager. It's going to know that I'm going to set up with Kendra. It's going to know the location of my NMC. It's going to know the location of my edge appliance. It's going to log into my NMC, and it's going to get all the information it needs to be able to set up the analytics connector for that volume. It knows where it's going to end up at. It's the destination that's going to, and it's going to put this Lambda function as part of a Terraform code to be able to be spun up either as a persistent triggered function or spun up every time I use the analytics connector. There's kind of two different models that we have there.
Is that going through a proxy or is it accessing the objects directly then?
From on this top here, the analytics connector, this is going directly into it's getting it directly from the source, from the object store. Yeah, so there's no, that's the nice thing about the connector is that these set of Lambda functions are basically taking the keys that you give it access to, the encryption keys. It's then using its own way of surfing through the Nasuni file system, but without using the edge appliance, and then recombines everything in the logic for that. So there's something very powerful about, because we've taken the basic logic of the edge appliance and turned it into this kind of burstable Lambda code. But once it spins up, then it spins down, and then obviously it's sort of an on-demand way of doing this kind of access in and out of the system. So I'm going to show you really what all the things I had to set up ahead of time on this one, which is a pretty small list of stuff. Basically, we tell our customers, do this. If you got a web accessible appliance, put that in there. Go ahead and create an S3 bucket. Put the name of it in there. Here's the NMC API endpoint, the endpoint for my NMC API, my username. As you might guess, this is my password, but it's actually not my password, as you can see there. I'll make that a little bit larger. And then this is a set of data that you actually get from the Nasuni account, which is there's a product key that will give you when you install the analytics connector, or you are authorized to use it. There's a way in which you put the encryption key, your volume key, into a secure location, and then things that are more directly related to just the management of this. If I want to create a NAC schedule, I put a name on it. So inside my EC2 environment, I see the name of the instance that's going to be running the scheduler. And for right now, we're using PEM keys for it. There are other ways to do this, but right now we tell our customers to identify the PEM key that they've been using for most of their other EC2 instances, and to give us that path there. So you essentially have this amount of information. Anytime I want to run an integration at this point, whether it's the NAC scheduler or whether it's OpenSearch, which actually is ES, or what we call pipeline, it's still the same integration. And I can change anything from projects. I could turn it into the clients folder. Whatever integration I want now, I can just launch directly from here. It'll use the same scheduler, and it will just manage that coordination of all those resources. So we're super excited about this. We're excited what our customers are going to be doing with it. We're excited to see what other kinds of innovations we get from the field on this one. And we've already seen customers like Perkins & Will, which has been a customer of ours for years now, use the analytics connector for image search. So they've taken, these are one of the leading architect and engineering firms in the country. They use the analytics connector to provide image tagging on all of their past projects, so that now they've got a set of tags that they can search when they do a new proposal. Because a lot of what will help win a new proposal is being able to reference things that look like the thing that you're actually pitching today. And it's kind of a hard problem. Yes, you might know that this involved a bridge, or you might know that this was Riverside, or you might know that this, was eastwardly facing. But to have all of that, captured from a set of image analyses to be able to describe like the actual situation in which the building was constructed, that's kind of difficult. But with Amazon Recognition, it's really easy to be able to extract those image tags from it. And now they've used the analytics connector to do that. They've got a ton of other really interesting things that they've planned with the NAC scheduler as well. And we're really excited about that. We use analytics connector in it's really a services connector more than anything else. The analytics piece is our way of sort of talking about getting insights from the data, from the services. But some of the other interesting things that we've seen customers ask for have been things like being able to do metadata searches over their content. So being able to just see like the names of the files. I think we talked about before, even using it for indexing the file names, but also all of the metadata associated with just the structure around the files. We can do that inside of OpenSearch in particular. We have some nice ways in which we can leverage other elements of Elasticsearch and Kibana to be able to represent some of the file access and file usage. In terms of the PII things, which I mentioned before, we're very excited about what that will look like. That is less of a continuous scheduling event, and that has more to do with how we are going to help bring that data back into the file system, or at least like use it to trigger, here are the locations that you need to then become aware of, or here's the list that you have to keep track of for where there might be potential violations.
Is there also, I mean, this is a great use case, Perkins and Will, but how about like data forensics? Is this something that a data forensics organization might be interested in using? And I don't know, you'll like look through somebody's laptop's hard drive.
Oh, that's interesting. So yes, and there's something about, which goes back to one of the other points we made earlier, which is, remember, we have all these different versions, points in time. So, a lot of data forensics not just comes from like, hey, I want to be able to analyze this. I want to go back and see, at this exact moment, what was happening.
Right.
Because whether it's an infiltration event or someone decided to cover it up later and all that stuff.
Right.
We're designed to do that very well. So we're designed to be able to say, hey, 2 weeks ago, this particular folder, I want to know exactly what that state looked like at 4 o'clock.
Interesting.
And now with the analytics connector, what you can say is, I want to know exactly what the volume looked like at 4 o'clock. And I just want you to send me, all of the exe files that were there.
Gotcha.
And then that can get extracted out. And essentially today you could just put that into a bucket, do what you want to do on that bucket at that point.
Gotcha.
The other piece of this is that sort of the more analytics flow, which kind of touches on some of the forensic stuff you're talking about, is integrating with other established pipelines that are being offered today. Almost every one of the ML like projects that you see either on Amazon or on Azure starts with well, let's just start with your bucket, or let's just start with your container. You've all your data there, and then an entire CloudFormation template spins up from there. And usually the hardest part of that whole thing is like, okay, well, how am I going to get all my data into that bucket? Because it's usually in all these different locations or whatnot.
Gotcha.
We're basically the way of feeding that type of workflow or that type of pipeline.
Exactly.
So we've done the complicated part of consolidating all of your storage, then being able to extract only the things that you need, put it into a bucket in this kind of native form, and then we can leverage whatever templates already exist for ML pipelines or ML analyses.
Gotcha.
So that's where, and I don't have a good demo of that one today, but we've been working really closely with our AWS partners for where those sweet spots are right now, where we can start to leverage them.
And I could imagine that would also be, like you're saying, for a ransomware, post-ransomware attack of
going, we've seen
show me the,
already.
Show me the, the vector so that, I need this guy's list of medications he's going to die from if I give it to them now, but how did we get infiltrated?
How do we get there? How can we look through that? You can use the analytics connector for that. You can also, you can always set up a read-only version of a part of the file system onto another appliance as well.
Okay. And
keep it there. So the fundamental thing with all the things that we're talking about here, which is like kind of all in the like legal hold space as well, is the fact that, and this, I'll make this point again about ransomware, which is that, when ransomware comes into our system, we think of it as like, oh, I've modified a file. From our perspective, you haven't modified a file. You've created a bunch of other objects that just happen to be linked to a manifest that says it's a file. So if I've got, my super secret client list XLS, before ransomware attacked, it looked like these 3 different data chunks. When ransomware attacks, we just have my super secret client list XLS version 2 equals these completely different data chunks. So the original data chunks are always there and they're immutable. They're not moving anywhere. Ransomware just came in and said, let me be the next version of that. Well, all we do is we just say, hey, look, go back to the other definition of what, the file should have been. continue on from there. And by the way, if I do want to restore that one file, that one directory, that one volume of that version somewhere else, you can do that, put it onto another appliance, secure it, lock it down, make it read-only, just even make it safer, take it out of the mix, turn off snapshots, and now you've got an environment which you can analyze whatever you want.
You can certainly do this through the analytics connector, but do you actually have a baked-in way of just generating a change list?
A
change log?
A change log for no, but there's something I didn't mention yet, which is the other part of the platform that we haven't talked about, which is we do have an AMQP stream of audit events, which is kind of which we've used in that sort of way. There, we have not opened up what you're talking about, which is that that very nice summary of the delta between two different versions. But that would be an interesting thing.
You can certainly do that through the analytics connector. It sounds like
you could. You have to, like, the customer would have to do a little bit of managing of some of that. But that's something we could probably open up, which would be kind of interesting. Before you even do any of the exports, we could just say, like, here's the differences between these two versions.
Yeah, it seems like that'd be a good first step for ransomware. Sure, right?
Yeah.
Did you feel to say that? Yeah.
Not just at a file level, but at the file system level, where you could actually have a complete list of everything that had changed and when it had changed.
And I don't want to get too far ahead of myself on this one, but we do have a new version of detection coming out in the next version, which is all about being able to establish, where the threats came in, and then some automation around, or at least the beginning of some automation around how to prevent that. I'll have to check to see what degree we make that some of that analysis available through APIs on it. I know most of the stuff that we've developed usually starts with an API. This detection piece, I think, is baked into a process, but we may have some API access to that change log. Let's look at that.
Okay.